$1 trillion. In 2025, Poland crossed that line and overtook Switzerland to do it. But rewind to 1989, and this was a country with hyperinflation exceeding 600%. Empty shelves, a currency collapsing by the hour. So how did the sick man of communist Europe become one of its greatest success stories? Stay with me. Warsaw, 1989. The shelves are empty. Not low on stock, empty. Sugar rationed, meat rationed. Even soap, some weeks impossible to find. The zloty is worth less every single day you hold onto it, and everyone knows it, so nobody holds onto it for long. People are queuing for hours just to buy bread, trading favors, trading connections, trading anything that might still hold value tomorrow. And the number on everyone's mind, 600%, is the rate their money is dying. Most countries in that position don't recover. They spiral. Currencies collapse into worthlessness. Governments fall. Decades pass before anyone speaks of recovery again. But Poland did something almost nobody expected. An economist named Leszek Balcerowicz stepped forward with a plan so aggressive, so uncompromising, that people called it shock therapy. Because that's exactly what it was. Prices freed overnight, subsidies cut all at once with no cushion. The zloty devalued hard and fast, on purpose to stop the bleeding before it became fatal. It was brutal. Unemployment spiked. Factories that had limped along for decades under state control simply closed their gates. For a moment, it looked like the medicine might kill the patient. Here's the thing, though. It worked. Within 2 years, hyperinflation that had topped 600% was crushed down under 20. Between 1990 and 2004, Polish exports increased more than sixfold. GDP expanded by nearly 80%. This wasn't luck. This was discipline, the kind most nations don't have the stomach for. While other post-communist economies got hijacked by oligarchs and corruption, Poland built something sturdier. Independent courts, an anti-monopoly agency, institutions strong enough to say no to the wrong people. That decision, the willingness to take the pain early while others hesitated, is the exact reason what happened next was even possible. Because Poland wasn't just recovering, it was setting up for a run that would stun the rest of Europe. By the mid-90s, something strange was happening. Poland wasn't just stabilizing, it was growing fast. Between 1994 and 2014, the Polish economy expanded at an average annual rate of 4.2%. Economists started calling it the European tiger. And then, in 2004, Poland made the move that changed everything. It joined the European Union. Now, some will tell you that was dependency, leaning on Brussels, but look at what Poland actually did with that seat at the table. Between 2004 and 2020, Poland's GDP nearly tripled. Not doubled, tripled. Highways got built, factories modernized. By 2023, Poland had received over 250 billion euros in EU structural funds, more than any other member state, with another 137 billion euros still accessible going into 2024. This wasn't a country waiting for handouts. This was a country that read the terms of the deal better than anyone else at the table and turned every euro into infrastructure, industry, and leverage. And here's the number that should silence the skeptics. Without EU membership, Poland's GDP per capita would be 31% lower today, stuck at 2014 levels. Limping along at 60% of the EU average, instead, Poland used that membership as a launch pad. Since joining, Poland's economy has grown an average of 3.8% annually, more than double the European average of 1.8%. That's not catching up, that's overtaking. But growth like that draws a test. And in 2008, the whole world was about to find out whether Poland's foundation was real or just a lucky decade. September 2008. Lehman Brothers collapses. Markets across the planet go into freefall. Greece riots, Spain riots, Ireland's banks implode. Country after country on the map turns red. Recession, recession, recession. Except one, Poland. Think back to what I said earlier about discipline, because it's true here more than anywhere. Poland was the only EU economy that did not experience recession during the 2008 to 2009 global financial crisis, not 1 quarter of negative growth. While London and Paris and Madrid were bleeding jobs, Warsaw kept moving, cafes stayed open, construction cranes kept turning over the skyline. Life remarkably went on. How does that even happen? Part of it was the zloty. Between October 2008 and January 2009, it depreciated against the euro by about 1/3, more than any other EU currency. That sounds like weakness. It wasn't. It made Polish exports suddenly brutally competitive, right when the rest of Europe needed to buy cheap. But there was something else, something quieter. Poland's domestic consumer market simply wasn't drowning in the same credit-fueled debt that sank the West. While Western banks had gorged on leverage for a decade, handing out mortgages and credit cards like candy, Polish households and firms hadn't built their lives on borrowed money. Call it caution. Call it hard-earned post-communist skepticism of easy credit. Whatever it was, it saved them. From 1990 to 2011, Poland posted the greatest economic growth of any former Soviet bloc country in Europe, more than doubling its GDP in real terms, without a single year of negative growth going all the way back to 1991. 20 straight years. No other country to the east of the old Iron Curtain can say that. While the advanced economies of Western Europe were learning just how fragile they really were, Poland was proving something else entirely, that it didn't need their model to win. Everything before this, the shock therapy, the EU funds surviving 2008, it was all building toward one number. $1 trillion. In 2025, it happened. National statistics placed Poland's GDP at $1.0005 trillion, using an average second quarter exchange rate of 3.7565 zloty to the dollar. Poland officially became the 20th largest economy on Earth. Sit with that for a second. And here's the detail that should make every Polish viewer sit up straight. Poland didn't just join that club, it pushed Switzerland out of the way to get in. Old money, old stability, watches, banks, centuries of quiet wealth, overtaken by a nation that was rationing sugar within living memory. This wasn't a fluke here either. Polish GDP grew 3.6% year-on-year in the fourth quarter of 2025, the highest growth rate in Central Europe, one of the highest anywhere in the EU. Unemployment fell to 4.9%, the lowest in the entire Union. Foreign direct investment hit $12.3 billion, pouring into automotive plants and gleaming new tech campuses outside Krakow and Wrocław. The automotive sector alone contributed $45 billion to GDP, with electric vehicle production doubling since 2022. Tech exports reached $28 billion, led by software written by Polish engineers, now competing directly with Berlin and London. Some analysts want to call this sudden. It isn't. As economist Alina Landowska put it, Poland's institutional reforms, the independent courts, the anti-monopoly agency, prevented the oligarch hijacking that crippled so much of post-communist Europe. This is 35 years of discipline arriving all at once on the scoreboard. Switzerland is behind Poland now. So who's next? The IMF isn't finished with Poland. It projects Poland's GDP will reach $1.13 trillion in 2026, with growth continuing near 3.2% all the way through 2028, when the total is expected to hit $1.3 trillion. Compare that trajectory to the old guard. Germany's growth engine is sputtering, France is drowning in debt and political paralysis. Britain remains stuck in its own slow-motion reckoning outside the union it left behind. Their charts flatten. Poland's keeps climbing 3–4% year after year, like clockwork. Poland's per capita GDP has now risen to $55,340, 85% of the EU average, and closing fast. Under the current EU funding framework, another 150 billion euros is set to flow into Poland's economy by 2030, aimed squarely at infrastructure and green energy. Warsaw isn't waiting to be handed relevance, it's engineering the next decade the same way it engineered the last three. Is there work left? Of course. IMF economist Jan Kowalski has pointed to research and development, human capital, the next generation reforms needed to keep converging with Western Europe's top economies. But notice what that really is. That's not a warning sign. That's the next phase of a plan that has worked for 35 straight years, executed by a nation that has never once needed an excuse. Because in 1989, the zloty was worth less by the hour and the shelves were empty. Now the counter reads $1 trillion, and it's still climbing. If you want to understand where real power in Europe is heading next, subscribe to Economics Edge, because Poland isn't done writing this story.